And away we go. Hopefully, we'll find out. I started a little early on purpose to give myself a second today in case something wasn't working quite the way that I anticipated, which is really tricky to know with all of these systems. Good morning, everybody who's already here. We're going to give it a hot second for people to roll in. The chat is on my screen. Good morning, Janet. And yeah, hopefully we're all ready to go and get excited about our upcoming knit along. The heap of absolutely stunning yarns that I have on the floor next to me to talk to you about because of a lot of different things. I have some housekeeping announcements about Get Flocked that you guys have a bit better of an idea of what's going on as far as when you're reaching out to us to communicate and who you should be expecting answers from and what sort of timelines those may come in. We're going to cover all of that stuff today because it's all about the shop. And then we'll talk a little bit about my ongoing projects, what I'm going to be knitting for the upcoming knit along, some yarns that I think all of you really should be working with right now. So yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover. Let's get excited. So our cabled cardigan knit along has wrapped up. Congratulations again to Val Snow, the winner with her stunning Smoke Show cardigan. And I would like to thank everybody who participated, either from cheering on from the sidelines or getting on board. I can admit the cabled cardigan knit along was a bit of a hot mess. The shipments of the yarns for it did not happen on time. Nothing to do with me, but it was the nature of it. I only just finished my second project, and the third one is nowhere near done. And that one's all in a bag, all blocked and ready to go to be fully seamed and put together. So this is Timberline by Jared Flood. Let's give that a little preview up to the camera. In Shelter, we'll save the full reveal for a little later. So this colorway is Button Jar. It is an absolute stunner. It was honestly a joy to knit. I can be truthful. I let myself get caught up in my own hype around trying to finish this on time, and it shredded the joy out of it. And I also need to be honest that this has been a very exhausting time period. I didn't talk about this very much before I went away, but I, over Christmas, went back to Canada for a break and to surprise my mom, most importantly. And some things happened. Everything is fine, nothing to worry about, but the vacation itself, the time that I was hoping for some rest, ended up not being particularly restful. And we came back in here to a new year where, if you're in New Zealand, you're familiar with the fact that a lot of different businesses can be closed for quite a while into the new year, which is a special thing to experience when you've started a lot of processes before the end of the year and you're trying to get them continuing into the new year. There were a lot of updates to the systems that we use that we were not aware were coming or happening and that they would be mandatory. And it just led into a admin situation that is a different challenge to, I think, what people think of when they hear an admin situation. So just one of those things. If you're ever dealing with a small business owner, please note that if they're an expert in their field like I am, I'm an expert knitter, I know a lot about wool, I'm here to bring you the best tools and wools that I know of and to make sure that you guys have access to them at the best prices possible. And that's what I do. That's my portion of what I do inside of this job. It's really challenging to keep track of Ravelry, Instagram, Facebook, Shopify, email, more than one email inbox. The 40 different ordering systems that all of our stockists use. Xero, IRD, Streamlabs, which is the platform that I'm talking to you on, YouTube, the platform that I use to broadcast this, then Mighty Networks, which I use to run the flock online, Then the 3 different pieces of video and sound editing software that I use to make those videos happen. And then on top of that, also photo editing, Canva, the Shopify email system, which is separate to Shopify itself. And that's just what I generally have to do to get back to people by the end of day Monday. So, all of our background systems have updated themselves, which I think in a world where you have a lot of time to work through what all those updates mean would be really invigorating and enjoyable, and you get to use all these new features. But when you're a small business owner, suddenly the button that you need, that you click every day for 6 months, is gone. And it has moved somewhere else. Oh, and this is not to mention the 5 shipping platforms that we use. Not by choice, to be clear. It's actually just how the systems are set up. 5 different platforms. 3 of which are just for one courier. So it gets really overwhelming on the admin front. And it is no longer possible for me, Ethan Barkley, and you to be across everything. To wit, I just want all of you to know that I am taking, and have taken, as of Thursday this week, a big step back from the day-to-day admin of the business. So if you're reaching out and looking for a response going forward, just be aware it's probably not coming from me any longer. And I know it was for a couple of months there, but I'm attempting to do my very, very best to take a step back from that admin overload that is eating my brain's capacity to remember what the difference between a Rambouillet sheep and a Merino sheep is, which is very important to what I do. Knowing where the button to click inside of one of 3 possible shipping platforms that may or may not work when you open it doesn't really help me to do my job and help you guys very well. So I will be here if you're looking to bump into me on Saturdays going forward, and on Wednesdays to host our knit night. Apart from that, I'll be on Monday mornings until 12 and every second Tuesday until 12. Apart from that, I will be doing my admin work and the other stuff that I do for the business from home. Please feel free to reach out to us through the getflockedknitting@gmail.com inbox if you need to make an appointment with me. One of the team members who monitors the inbox will let me know, and I will do my best. We are looking at setting up multiple inboxes so that we can diversify the email and have different team members get back to you in timelines that make sense. And I am just going to be very clear. It is not possible for us to give you any sort of estimates on when overseas shipments are going to arrive. We're not doing this for any reason, and I just want to be really clear about it. It is something that I personally, as a person named Ethan, find very frustrating, and professionally have found very challenging to manage. Managing expectations around timelines of when things will arrive in the current era of the utter lack of corporate responsibility to smaller businesses. I think if you're on the same size paradigm as these businesses, you may get a response out of them, but I'm just gonna be blunt. DHL has overcharged me since mid-December, everybody, and trying to manage and understand what is going on with the shipping platforms and trying to get corporations like DHL and NZ Post to take responsibility for their behavior and how they are not fulfilling what their guarantees are when you are paying them for a service means we just can't give you any timelines that are accurate. And I'm really sorry for that, because I really wish we could. I think it would drive higher sales and make things better for the business and better for everybody, but it's not possible unless we get buy-in from our courier partners, and we don't control them. And they, frankly, as I learned from attempting to get a single response from New Zealand Post since December 2nd until this Monday that just passed, which was February the 16th, has taught me that they are not accountable and they're not interested, which is disappointing. 17th, February the 17th. Anyway. Just wanted you guys to know what's going on with that. If it seems like we're not answering questions like that, it's not on purpose. We just don't know. We do not know when that box is going to arrive. We might be told Wednesday. It might show up a week later. No company that we deal with, even the ones that we have direct agreements with, feels any sort of need to do anything to rectify these situations when they come up. And even when you follow up with them, they treat you like the customer, has done something wrong. So I just need you guys to know what it's like trying to deal with them. They're not any nicer to us than they are when you contact them as a regular customer. Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you, Fiona. It has been really overwhelming. It's been overwhelming for about 7 years since I started working inside of what people refer to as the knitting community or wool industry, which is actually made up of about 6 different industries, everybody, that intersect at a physical space known as your local yarn shop. And your local yarn store owner most likely has an area of expertise inside of their craft. They might be a knitter or a crocheter or a general person or somebody who introduces people to new aspects of different fiber craft because they are a multi-crafty person who has that beautiful ability to interest people in the entry level of what we're doing with a task. I myself am a relatively high-level knitting technician. That's kind of my main interest. And I'm a technical editor, and when given the time, energy, opportunity, and space, a pretty good instructor of our knitting arts. And that's really where I specialize and what I need to focus on if we're going to continue to do this as a group. People often come in and ask about classes and other things like that, and realistically, the space that I acquired for this shop is not well suited to teaching classes. So I am working on some alternatives for that, but like most things, it's going to take time, which I struggle with because I'm not a patient person and I have very high expectations for myself. So, all of that being said, thank you for listening to the world's longest chat for me to say that I'm no longer doing day-to-day admin. If you're reaching out with a question or if you're in store and have a question, there's a very good chance that I no longer know the answer. While I do the ordering and other things like that, timelines of when we receive the orders are very divorced from when orders are placed, and it's just not possible for us to know at any given moment what is going to arrive and when it's going to arrive, which is a unique and interesting opportunity to run this organization and to grow it in a way that is organic and timely as opposed to planned. And that's special. Now, the good news about all of this is, because we never know when anything is going to arrive, but we still plan knit-alongs anyway, we are actually ready for our upcoming knit-along. So, all that admin stuff aside, one of the great things that I get to do here is run and plan knit-alongs with all of you. And I frickin' love a knit-along, it turns out. Now that I'm not doing the day-to-day admin, it leaves me a lot freer to enjoy this again. And I want to spread the enjoyment of knitting to all of you. I want this to come back to being a joy. I want to remind everybody at home too, as we launch in on this next along and all of our future knit-alongs, that good things aren't always easy, and that even though this is something that we do for fun, improving our skills at it can really help this to be more enjoyable. I'd like to, before we jump into our Knit Fast, Die Warm knit-along, give you guys a little analogy from my hobby, because this is my profession. My hobby is CrossFit. Please feel free to unsubscribe now. Now, you may not think that CrossFit and knitting are necessarily related, but they actually are. And I'm wearing a pullover that I feel like really exemplifies this. This is an upcoming pattern for me. This is my toile pullover, the Raglan edition. This one I knit up quite a while ago in Filcolona, Arwetta, and Tilia. I'm going to start a second one of these in April when I release the pattern to the members of the Flock Online. If you're interested in getting involved so that your skills can grow too, please come join us at theflockonline.co.nz. Its official relaunch is March 1st, which is next Saturday, and I have plans for you. Now, the Flock Online and CrossFit and all that, what do they have to do with each other? Fundamentals. When we look at starting a new hobby or an activity or something, we really want to have fun. And I think that one of the things that people forget about is the first part of the word fundamentals is fun. Why is the first part of fundamentals fun? Because the investment that you put in, the fund that you create, allows you to extract the fun at the end. So when we invest in our fundamentals, the basis, the broadest possible portion of our overall hobby. In CrossFit, that's probably either your aerobic conditioning or most likely your weightlifting or nutrition, that big bottom of the pyramid shape. In knitting, when we're trying to look at a hierarchy of knitting skills that lead to long-term success, the two only skills that matter for the entirety of your time as a knitter are the knit and the purl. Just like in CrossFit, the basic movements, the pressing plane, the squatting plane, the pulling plane, and aerobic capacity make up the three basic foundations of our fitness, right? Inside of knitting, good tension, good fabrics, good things that we love to make are formed by the relationship between each individual stitch that we make. And the further that we progress in making each individual stitch more perfect, the further that we progress in being able to knit the things that we love. Everything in knitting is made up of knits and purls. There are additional special stitches like yarn overs, etc. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, that motion is still the same as a knit or a purl. All of this, for all time, will always be about the interrelationship and the good formation of those two stitches. The beauty of knitting is that nothing else matters. If you can knit and purl, you can make anything. And I just want all of you, as we launch into these knit-alongs, as we grow our skills together this year, as we push frontiers and new boundaries, remember that the thing that lets you step forward with confidence inside of knitting, just like the thing that lets me step forward inside of CrossFit with confidence, is the fundamentals. When we've really invested our time in the beauty of the basics, and when we find joy in refining that and being a part of that process journey, the outcomes that we get will improve. And there are so many beautiful things out there that are made up of just knits and purls. And that's the greatest thing about this. So, knit fast, dye warm. Something that I've been using as a tag, I think, since I started knitting. A long time ago, my friend Bridget, who owned Needles in the Hay, the yarn store that I used to attend and then later worked at, which is now owned by the wonderful Deanna Gutman. And if you're ever in Peterborough, Ontario, or in Ontario, make a detour because Needles in the Hay is worth it. When I was there, I started using this hashtag #KnitFastDyeWarm, and it was a nihilistic expression of the fact that I thought we were doomed. I still think we're doomed, but I think we can do it joyfully. And Knit Fast Dye Warm now was inspired by the wonderful Christine, who's going to join me here next Saturday. Right here, hopefully. We'll find out. She might want to be on this side. We won't know till it happens. And that is the goal of trying to prepare ourselves for the winter. So this year for Knit Fast Dye Warm, we have 3 categories that you can win a redesigned project number 36, which I have behind me. A redesigned project 36. This is the prize for each of the categories. Isn't she lovely? This 36 is the best tool pouch of all time, and I have 2 of them and I need 4 more. I freaking love it. It is the Project 9 shrunk down, and as we all know, the smaller something gets, the cuter it gets, and this is both adorable and functional. If you don't have a Project 36 in your life, well, get your needles out and race to the finish, because we are going to be knitting from March 1st all the way until May 4th, my birthday, and Get Flock's holiest high holiday. So, what are we going to do on May 4th? Who knows? It could get wild. It could get naked. It could get nitty. You'll never find out unless you're here. But we are going to wrap up on May 4th and talk all about everything that we learned and grew together through the course of this knit-along. This year, for Knit Fast Dye Warm, the categories, as I said, that you can win prizes for are a seamed garment, a garment knit seamlessly, or an accessory. Why are we keeping the categories broad? So that you feel invited to use something that you have knit before to find a way to improve it or bring it to what you thought it would be, or just knit it again because you loved it. When you re-knit things, they will go faster. My first Timberline took 3 months. I knit all of the pieces and finished blocking them in less than 3 weeks this time. That's a pretty wild accomplishment. That is a 60% reduction in time for one of the largest knits that we know of. I am insanely pleased with how fast it went, and I cannot wait to wear it once it's all finished up. And I think that all of you participating in Knit Fast Dye Warm are going to find some gems and things that you have already knit that you want to knit again. Don't limit yourself to just one entry. Feel free to enter into each category as many times as you like. Please note, if you are entering into the seamed category, it has to be seamed. All of it. Not like a tiny little piece, not like one little shoulder, the whole thing. And it's worth it because knitting pieces flat takes less time. Now, you might be sitting there at home going, but Ethan, I've never knit a garment before. What am I going to jump in on with this? Well, I think you should consider re-knitting something that we have knit from one of our previous knit-alongs, or knitting something that I have knit before. So, I should have grabbed Trite. I wanted to go back over some of the knit-alongs that we've done since we've been here, and I should have asked to borrow more people's garments, but I failed miserably. Let me grab one from over way, and then we'll show you the other one that I got pulled out, and we'll go through this. The good thing about outgrowing my clothes is that they make great shop samples for all of you. Our most successful knit along, the one with the broadest participation by far when I looked back at the numbers, is our lace yoke knit along. The lace yoke knit along was one of the first ones that we run, and it includes a lot of pullovers that are great for first time knitters and great for people like Kate who want to make a high quality garment but don't necessarily want to sew seams. There are lots of entries into this that you may want to consider. You might want to consider jumping in on something like a ranunculus if you're a newer knitter and you're looking for something that lots of people have made before that you know confidently you can finish inside of that 2-month period. Alternatively, if you have knit a ranunculus or like the look of it and want something a little bit more challenging and interesting, you may want to change to something like what Emily made for the yoke knit along, the Lady Catkin pullover. A beautiful shaped pullover with more of a raglan style shaping after the round yoke lace portion of it that then extends down into a wider sleeve with a slightly longer body that I think would be more comfortable for more people. You may want to also consider the highest crime in all of knitting, Love Note. And if you want to knit any of these and want advice on how to select yarns to give you the finished effect that you want, please get in touch so that we can help you out with that, because knitting a perfect Love Note and knitting a perfect ranunculus is totally possible. Getting what you want out of those patterns depends on what you put into it and what your expectations are. But there's no wrong way to approach this. So, what I ended up knitting for that lace yoke pullover is one of my favorite lace yoke patterns of all time, Trite by Kate Davies. I did this in a yarn that we no longer carry, which is roughly a sport weight, and worked really, really well on a 3.5 millimeter needle. This lace yoke pullover begins from the bottom up and then is worked seamlessly and joined at the underarms, and this yoke portion is worked entirely in the round from the bottom up. The decreases I personally find easier to track than the increases, and the lace yoke starting at the bottom and working upward, while it has more weight on it, means that the happy part is at the end, and it makes knitting the body and the sleeves less frustrating because they're not attached. You still get a seamless effect and finish, and there are clear instructions in Kate Davies patterns of where to add length if you require it. And as well, you will end up with a pullover that you love. And I will say, across the board on Trite, the lace portion of this does, in general, end above the bra line. If you're concerned about that, do try on someone else's or look at photos online to see where that may happen for you, or wear a top underneath of it if that's a concern. These lace yoke pullovers are super beautiful and super great to make. If I was to knit Trite again for this knit along, I know that I would absolutely grab a shade quite similar or something really punchy in Ulyss. Ulyss is a sport weight woolen spun wool, quite similar to the one that I knit my Trite in, except with a big, beautiful color range. I grabbed these guys because I think all of them would make a spectacular Trite, including Poivre Blanc, Emeraude, Cèdre, and Delphinium. You know, these are all colors that are obviously very much in the Ethan palette, and you may want to explore some of the other warmer options that we have. Colorwork yokes could also be a really exciting option, and a fingering weight colorwork yoke would also shine in this particular yarn. Ulyss is a little bit grippy and fun, so it's a little bit easier to work with, and the blend of organic Merino des Halles and Portuguese black merino gives a beautiful depth to the yarn as color is applied over top of it. Some of the shades are pure merino and some of the pure Merino des Halles, and some of them are a blend, creating all the different heathered and textured shades. There's no color of Ulyss that we haven't loved, and the natural shades like Granit also show off the texture very, very well. You may be thinking to yourself, but Ethan, I really want to knit something, like you said, using all those knits and purls, and is Ulyss going to be the thing? Is, knitting a full pullover in fingering or sport weight possible during a month? Well, for one thing, it's 2 months, March 1st to May 4th, and I think it is possible for almost every knitter if you pick it up and work on it every day. But if you're concerned, thanks to the magic of television, boop, 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 and the help of the wonderful dye Prangle, we also have great options for you in worsted weight to consider. This is the Storm Sweater by Petite Knits. It's a classic style Gansey pullover that's common to many different regions and eras. This particular one is knit seamlessly from the top down and features the Gansey motifs in knit and purl stitch patterns to create textured images. There's some broken garter rib and some other things incorporated in there as well, and the sleeves mimic the pattern. Overall, the garment is really beautiful, and this particular one was knit in Juliet. This worsted weight yarn, as we can see, has beautiful stitch definition and creates a lightweight, gorgeous pullover that is warm and breathable due to its semi-woolen spun construction. Worsted weight yarns ended up on a 4.5 to 5 millimeter needle really feel like they fly along. And taking, I believe when I weighed this guy, it was 580 grams. So that'll be less than 6 balls in the 2XL size, if I remember correctly, or XL size, if I'm actually remembering correctly. This little beauty is ready to go home with you. There are versions of this for children, for adults, and for men. So if you're looking for something to explore more petite knits things, but you don't necessarily want to double strand or do anything else, and you want something that's going to knit up faster, something like the Storm Sweater with its pearl and knit texture can be really good because it helps you go just one more row because you really want to see that pearl texture bloom on the fabric as you knit it. Luckily, we got a incredibly surprising restock of Juliet last week, and I mean incredibly surprising because I literally wasn't expecting it. And inside of that restock were some of our fan favorite colors. If you want a aesthetic quite similar to the pullover that Di made, but you don't want that pink, Beige is a warm, soft neutral that really will show off all of that stitch definition and texture without detracting from anything and will go perfectly with anything in any single wardrobe. Black, cream, white, brown, doesn't matter. Beige is your friend. It's a slightly lighter camel with less of that caramel shade to it. Doré has also come back in stock, and this rich mustard is the yellow that I think we all think of. It shines like gold, hence its name, and if you pop this onto anything, the texture does pop. Mustard has a very interesting effect. It's almost a universal neutral, and it works extremely well in wardrobes that are heavy in black, navy, and brown again. So if you're somebody who often dresses in neutrals, but you're looking for a way to add color without it clashing with your total wardrobe, something like this in Juliet, the Doré, this rich mustard shade, one of the reasons we carry so much of it in store is because black is the color of New Zealand. Everybody loves to wear it, and we love to pair colors with it that work well. So for our black loving friends, the Beige and Doré add added neutrality to your wardrobe, but will stand out and have a beautiful effect. And knit up into that jumper, it'll take no time. Yeah, honestly, this is a bit of a Durerum like love fest because it all came in and I'm knitting with a bunch of it at the moment and loving it. Alternatively, if you wanted to go into the cooler family, Brilliard is back. This gray blue definitely is quite blue leaning when you see it in person, although it does appear grayer on camera. And when compared to other grays, you can see that it is clearly quite blue leaning in person. Close to Ciel, but grayer, but not warm. We also have Fusain, a dark and interesting color that really needs to be experienced in person and best paired with other intense shades to give it a little bit of life. This is a new color, Pavot, here, this bright orangey red, and it's really rounding out that central palette between Petit Marron and Aubépine in the color palette here. You can see how well they play together, and again, if you were considering color work, I intentionally picked these up because you could use these shades in nearly any combination and come out with a beautiful classic effect. So pairing and playing with the Juliet colors as a total color palette and breaking them off into their little portions and making your mini wardrobe is completely possible. Now, last and not least, by any stretch of the imagination, I should reveal to you that I am knitting in Berenice and Albertine right now, getting the toile pullover drop shoulder sample ready so that it can be released next Saturday. I am using Albertine and Berenice, and Argile in the Berenice, and Aurore in the Albertine. I know some of the color names can be a little difficult to pronounce, even for me. Don't feel bad. If you're ever struggling with a name that is outside of the language that you speak, do your best to get all of the letters that you see pronounced. Most people who speak or understand the language will be able to figure out what you're meaning. And oftentimes, if someone who speaks a language repeats something back to you, it's because they're aiming for clarity. It's not a judgment on how you've pronounced the word. So, don't be afraid to come in store and try out some of these fun French color names because it can be exciting. And they are super beautiful. Those fabrics held together produce a sublime, slightly marled fabric. Okay. Sorry, sometimes, guys, when you're knitting with these sorts of fabrics and you hold them up, you see things. Often quite spectacular things that you couldn't see otherwise. Interesting. Anyway, it creates a slightly marled fabric that's really, really beautiful that I super duper love. And overall, I could not be more thrilled with how this has gone, quite frankly. The outcome of the fabrics and how it's playing out over this is going to be gorgeous when worn, super, super comfortable, and it's incredibly soft and velvety. There's a lot of short row shaping at the top of this, which is really, really worth it. This is the back, and as you can see, it's a very simple pattern to knit. That's the goal here. Simple, beautiful basics for these 12 patterns so that you can then use them to make modifications to more complicated patterns like the storm sweater, etc. if you're not a knitter who has had time to knit a lot of the basics that we used to start people out with. Or if you just want to skip past that. Now, why am I showing you that? Why am I wearing this? One of the big things in today's world is definitely knitting with yarns held double. And I think that there is a lot of confusion sometimes about how to substitute. Coming into Knit Fast Dye Warm, most people in New Zealand will have knit one of their patterns before in an 8-ply yarn or a 4-ply yarn, which we now refer to as DK and fingering weight. New Zealand 8-ply 10s and New Zealand 4-ply 10s to both run thicker than their international counterpoints, meaning that they can feel a little bit more like a worsted weight in the 8-ply category as opposed to DK, or a little bit more like a sport as opposed to a fingering weight. This means occasionally when we're attempting to knit things and get a really good transfer, the fabric that we end up with is denser than what we initially anticipated, not giving us quite the effect that we wanted. How do we solve that? Mohair, which I can't believe is the answer, but one of the beautiful ways to play with gauge in modern knitting, because the silk provides the structure for the stitches and stops things from moving out of place, is absolutely to simply knit it with mohair. I really love combining silk mohair and fingering weight yarns now. It's not something I would have thought I would be saying a year ago, 2 years ago, or ever, to be completely honest, but it is the truth. I really do enjoy it, and the fabrics that you can create are really beautiful. Knowing what that effect is going to be is not necessarily easy out of the gate, but here are some great tips if you're looking to make that sort of substitution. Lighter mohairs express the color underneath and add a little bit of haze, like here and in that previous one. Once blocked, the mohair will lay flatter to the surface of the fabric, giving a much less intense marl than what it initially started out with. Two different colors, as long as they are similar in shade value, so that the depth of the color taken black and white is similar, will produce a subtler marl than things with high levels of contrast. All of those rules make it pretty easy to make selections. And if we pair mohair with its intended mate, the color itself will intensify. This is Doré and Doré on Berenice and Albertine. And this would make a doubly enriched mustard that'll have a double punch of silk to it, the haze of the mohair differentiation of color, and the undertone of the merino base of that color. You'll essentially get 3 different styles of presentation of Doré in one fabric, enhancing the depth and enriching it. If we were to do something like take a slightly contrasting shade, like Rapscule, and pair it with either Oursin or, one of these other shades, Eucalyptus, or, who is this last one? Did I grab 2 balls? I grabbed 2 balls of Oursin, everyone. I grabbed 2 balls of Oursin. If we were to take something in the middle, like this guy, and pair it with either one of these, the 2 shades on either side would affect the color in different ways. This one would create a subtle soft marl, quite similar to what we're experiencing right now with the Argile and the Oval. This pairing would enhance the base color and give it a little bit more richness and depth, and adding that purple haze from the Oursin. Those sorts of options also help, and this would produce a DK weight fabric, meaning that if you've knit something before in a New Zealand 8-ply or in a DK weight and you're looking to experience that a little bit differently, this combination can absolutely give you what you're looking for. Last and not least, just in case all of you thought that this wasn't an option, if you wanted to mimic something like what I'm wearing, that really bright, aggressive, beautiful coolness is definitely best affected by combining two shades very, very similar that both maintain that coolness to them. This is Petit Matin on both Berenice and Albertine, and I love both of them. Together, it'll make a super intense version of this color and deliver a punchy pop of coolness. Last and not least, before I leave you, some DK weight options to consider as we enter into this transitional period. So here in Christchurch, the attempt at fall has already begun, but hot days are going to continue well into the month of May. But the mornings are going to be cool. What do? We need to knit fabrics that are going to move throughout the day with us. Lace and open fabrics can be really helpful for trans-seasonal wear, but also the yarn selection is one of those great things. We want to pick a yarn that goes easily from cool weather to warm weather. And if you're looking to re-knit something during the Knit Fast Die Warm Knit Along starting March 1st, running all the way till May 4th, then Luma, a blend of wool, silk, linen, and cotton, will be right up that alley. This little beauty comes in a huge array of newly restocked colors in sweater quantities at a generous 137 meters to the skein for the recycled beauty that's inside of it. In a variety of different tones from pure straight ones to heathered shades, there is absolutely no wrong way to use Luma inside of a pattern. It is lofty, it is light, it is comfortable to wear, and it knits like a worsted spun yarn because it is a worsted spun yarn. So incorporate Luma anywhere where you've used a DK weight yarn before and you want a slightly lighter, smoother finish that's going to give you something to wear all year round. Honestly, I just want to stress, Luma over the years has been one of the best-selling yarns everywhere I've ever had it. It's a bestseller because it's amazing. This is not my usual style of yarn, but even I have to admit that Luma goes above and beyond the ingredients inside of it to really produce something special. That's always been the fiber company's thing, to make a blend that is even better than that same blend from someone else. On the DK weight phase, we have a restock of 3 Acadia colors. Marooned, Cedar, and Thistle are all back in stock. Cedar is definitely, this guy on the end, our bestseller of all time. Marooned is coming up close behind, and Thistle definitely keeps moving out the door. Last and not least, for those of you who are going to pump out the accessories or join me knitting something in fingering weight, I really cannot shout out Amble enough. For our sock knitters, for our non-sock knitters, for people who are looking for a comfortable, long-lasting, durable garment, this is a workhorse fingering weight yarn with an incredible color palette and a huge variety. I'm going to be using their new color Isol, which is a gray that we never knew we needed, to finish up my second high street pullover to wear. Amble is a blend of wool, alpaca, and recycled nylon. It knits up at a plump sock gauge and is by far my favorite all-time sock yarn to wear. I knit 8 pairs of socks last year. I kept 1 pair and they were in Amble in Wastwater, which I am holding right here. So, get behind it. I have, by the way, put my Amble socks through the washing machine 3 times with no problem. If you want to be just like Ethan for this knit along, I'm going to be knitting the High Street pullover in Isol in Amble, but you could use a different color. Isol is a beautiful addition to the grays inside of Amble and other shades families. When you hold them side by side, you can see that we do actually need both of these grays. Scaffold Pike is a warm gray, and Isol is a cool gray, bringing out 2 different sides of a beautiful color tone. Never forget that it's worth it to explore which gray is best for you, warm or cool. Okay, I'm a little late. I have to go. We had a lot to talk about. I hope all of you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you all either later this week or next week, depending on where you are. Okay, bye-bye.